Thank you. Hello everybody, my name is Craig Bennett and I'm the founder and owner of TechViewSnip, and today we are going to do another Python tutorial. In this one we're going to get into variables. What is a variable? Now if you don't know how to set up your Python experience to be caught up where we're at, then feel free to click the card above somewhere and that will take you a video back. And if you want to skip ahead, then feel free to click the card above wherever it is, and that will take you a video forward. Now with this, if the card doesn't come out, that means the video is not out yet. Keep in mind these videos come out once or twice a week depending on my schedule. So as far as that goes, we're going to get into variables. You're going to hear about this in many other languages. I'm pretty sure there's a few languages that may not have them, but for the most part, all modern day languages, you're going to be dealing with these variables, strings, containers, things of this nature. With Python, you don't really deal with containers because it's not as restrictive. On other languages, it can be very restrictive. In fact, coming from a different language to Python, you'll actually feel it's sloppy, or someone can easily mess things up, which they can. But again, that's the reason why it's easy to write in Python, but not so much easy to have someone review your work. But if you want to get something out like that, Python is a pretty good answer. And if you got a short thing, it's very hard to mess that up. Now with this, we have a variable. So the variable, we just named it variable. So this could be named, say, I don't know, breakfast, lunch, dinner. This could be named paper, boy, cat, dog, whatever you want. And what the variable contains depends on other languages. We will have to define this. So many other languages, you have to define the actual thing. So for many languages, you have to put, for the integer, int in front, and then the variable name, and then the integer for the last. Well, basically with Python, we don't have to do that. It fixes it automatically, and that way we don't have to say this is going to be an integer, this is going to be a float, and this is going to be a string. So what's the difference between these three? Well, first one is what's called a string. We'll probably get more into this in a later video, but the thing to note is, let's pull up this. So what I have for the variable name is v, and the string itself is within the quotations, and we press a v and we get the string. Same thing down here is we change that automatically, and we say was your name, which is the string, and then it goes down here. So that's basically what we're doing, is we're using a variable to call, and then the Python looks for what is associated with this variable, and since we said that this string is associated with it, it goes from there. Now let's say that we go with a integer, which is whole numbers. Then what we do is we just do something like that, and it automatically changes it, as we see there. Now the last one is a float. So this is basically, if it has a decimal place, then it's just called a float. But for the most part, on other languages, you're going to have to define these things, and that's the thing to keep in mind. With Python, you don't really have to define it, and again, that's one of the reasons why it's easy to understand. Now, thing to note before we turn this off, it's best practice to use different names for different variables. So for example, if I have a variable and I want someone's name, I'll put name and then, you know, whatever I want. And that way I know what that variable is supposed to be related to. And instead of writing over the same variable, I can say something like that. So instead of writing over the same variable over and over and over, I can just make a new variable per thing. It's very important to note that, because what would end up happening is if you have the one variable used, say 10, 15, 20 times or more, it will get very confusing to go back there and see what the end result is supposed to be. You can do it, but it's really not advised. So that's a big thing to keep in mind, is you need to have your variables very particular. You need to use the best practice method of naming the variables, something that you can relate to what the variable is supposed to do or say. And for instance of this name, I know that it has something to do with name. Either it's supposed to grab the name, or it is supposed to show a question of the person's name. And then with the age, it's supposed to either ask what is your age or the age. So I can narrow it down by far for doing that. And that way I'm not putting some V or whatever in playing a guessing game. Because let's put it this way, if you went to sort out things in a box, and say for example you got apothecary, where it has thousands of little boxes in there, those medical apothecaries, and you pull out each box and you got herbs in one, you got medical plants and some others, and so on and so on. Well, if it has V on one, A on another, 0.4 on there, and so on and so on, and you pull out each one of those boxes, you're not going to know what's in them until you pull them out, because you didn't label it right. Whereas you put herbs and you know mint or whatever probably is in that one, you put in headache medicine, and Tylenol or whatever, aspirin or whatever is in that one, instead of seeing VA whatever. That's where the name portion comes in best practice with it. And instead of having V for each single box, so you got to treat someone real quick, and you're one of those old world countries where you don't have a hospital nearby, you got the medicine, plant form medicine in an apothecary box, and you got to figure out which one of the 1,000 boxes it is. And instead of playing a guessing game with 1,000 V's, you can say, oh, herbs, and just grab what you need and put it on the person's cut or whatever and go from there. And that same thing applies here, is you need to use a proper name for the variable to say what the variable is about, so you can relate it and call it easier and go from there. That's pretty much about it. That's a big thing to keep in mind with coding in general. It doesn't matter which language you got. But anyways, as far as that goes, that's all I'm covering in this video. If you do have any questions or anything, then feel free to leave them down there in the comment section. I'll try to answer as quickly as possible. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.